I'm Machen, and I'm a results leader.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
Yes, y'all. It is time once again for another ResultsLeader.fm. This is the only show on the internet dedicated to the men and women who are getting results for their clients. This is the place to be if you are a servant leader. And today I've got another amazing interview with Mr. Machen MacDonald. He's a performance coach guiding heroes to optimize their ultimate work-life integration. And it sounds kind of cyborgy, kind of futuristic. But when we jump into the episode, you're going to see how it all comes together. Let's do this. Machen, welcome to the show, brother. Been a long time in the making. Are you ready to rock this thing?
Let's rock it, brother. I'm ready.
All right. I like that. Let's give our listeners a quick win. What book have you given most as a gift?
Well, besides my books, the two books that are go-tos for me, one is a book called Nonviolent Communication. The other book is called The Power of TED, and TED stands for the Empowerment Dynamic. And I find that most of my leaders, most of the people that I work with, those are great books to get really, really clear on communication, not just with other people, but more importantly with themselves so that they can bring their wise self into the communication.
Now, this is a concept that I don't think we talk about enough, so I have to ask, what kind of communication do we have with ourselves?
Well, it depends which part of ourselves we're allowing in. I believe the way that I look at it is there's this wise part of ourselves where however many years we've been on the planet, we've learned, we've grown, we've made discernments, and we have a good sense of what works, what truth is. And there's also these other parts of us, for lack of a better word or other word, we'll just call it different sides of the ego, that makes up a story that, in some way, shape, or form, we're not good enough. And that can come in a lot of different flavors. And sometimes that's the voice that starts to drive the show and gets in the way or gets in the communication when we're with other people. And so when somebody says something or doesn't say something, we sometimes interpret that in a way that the ego wants us to, and we get a little emotionally hijacked or tipped over, and we come from that place, which sometimes is not where we always want to come from.
Powerful. I could spend all day on that topic, but let's go into story time. Can you tell us a story of how an apparent failure set you up for later success?
Well, I would go way back actually to when I was in college. I was engaged to be married, and my fiance kind of lost that loving feeling and broke up with me. And at that stage of my life, that devastated me. I was kind of lost for a while. And I found actually a book. It was Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. And I was reading the book and just started to get this renewed sense of hope and possibility. And did a couple things, actually jumped into one of his weekends that he does. And that really just gave me a whole new perspective or insight with regards to what's possible, and that also somebody can build a business around coaching and helping others in that regard. And that launched me on a certain trajectory. I got into financial services soon thereafter and had a successful career in that. And in that career, I was always coaching and mentoring the people that I worked with. And once I retired from financial planning, my phone started blowing up, and people were asking me to kind of help mentor them, and it just became a business. And that was about 25 years ago.
What's it mean to be a mentor?
To not be a tormentor. For me,
that's that other voice, the ego.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. A mentor, that's a great question, because I see it as this spectrum, right? It's like on one side, there's like therapy or counseling. On the other side, there's consulting, if you will, right? Telling people, here's what to do, just go do it. And then in between is kind of this blend of mentoring, which been there, done that, have the hats and mugs to show for it. And not to just tell people what to do or do it for them, but to really nudge and help bring out their best in doing that. And then from there, it blends into coaching, which is really just more of a Socratic process in its truest form, not having to have the answers, but having to have the questions. So I see mentoring as more of a blend of the coaching, the Socratic side of things, but also throw in some lifelines from time to time to help accelerate the process.
I've noticed that in this show, there's been several guys like you who, after you get about 2 decades in, you realize that it can't just be questions. Sometimes you got to throw, as you said, a lifeline and give a little consulting. So that's good for me to learn at this young stage of my life. I'm not that young. Anyways, what would you say is the most worthwhile investment you have ever made?
Oh, hands down, it's my family. I've been blessed to be married to my bride for 30 years this past June. We've got 3 great kids, and they bring me a ton of joy. And also, they teach me and they push me. And I learn a lot as a result of being in relation to all of them. You know, when I say investment, I'm talking about not just the money, but the time and the energy that goes with it too. And anybody that's has family like that, there's ups and downs and challenges. I kind of kid people, I say in relationship or in life, really, we're either riding the wave, things are great, we're all smiling, or paddling like heck to catch the wave, or the third alternative, we're getting crushed by it, right?
Humbled.
And that's just the cycle that we're always in. So if we can embrace each cycle and know that, we'll come out of whichever cycle, right? The old line of this will not last forever, whether it's good or bad, and that it's a cycle. And I think just knowing that and raising my family in a way that knows that we can all support each other and it's a safe place to always come home to.
30 years. I love it. That's a beautiful thing. Congratulations on that. We've been together, my wife and I, 17 years. So halfway mark there. In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Something that I've developed out of necessity for myself as well as my clients is something I refer to as the image process, which is I.M.A.G.E. And it's kind of from the concept of bookending our days, right? That first hour of our day and the last hour of our day is where we probably have the most sense of control. Everything else in between is kind of a whirlwind, especially if we're working with others. And so the image process, in a nutshell, is taking inventory of, okay, here's my day ahead of me. What's my intention? That's the I in image. How do I intend to be during this segment of my day, right? So it's like coming into this podcast, I set an intention for myself to be up, to be positive, to be curious, to access, my humor, whatever it takes to help make it a good podcast for your listeners. After this, I've got a client call and I'll have a different intention for that call. So I'm segmenting my intentions through the day. The M in image is magic or miracle. And that's really just look for what it is that you want. It's all around us. And if we look for the miracles and the magic that our life is unfolding in a really beautiful way, we'll find it, right? It might be, finding a nickel in the parking lot at the store. The universe is telling us we're abundant. Or it's an old client that calls back and says, hey, we haven't been in touch, but I need some help and, I'd like to hire you again, right? All this stuff that we really just don't plan for, but shows up. The A in image is affirmations. We all know affirmations, right? I am confident, I am wise, I am whatever. But we also shifted into what I call ask formations. Because sometimes we might not feel confident, right? Our BS meter goes off, right? The belief system says, well, this is a whole new situation. I don't know that you got the confidence. By turning it into an ask formation, why am I confident? How can I be confident? Our brain works just like Google. It's going to go out there for that search and it'll come back with evidence to support the feeling that we're wanting. So I'm big into affirmations and ask-formations. The G in image is gratitude, right? We can't feel confungled and be in gratitude at the same time. So if things are going sideways, count your blessings, right? And so I've got little reminders all over the place to keep me in that space. And then the E in image is expansion, right? How did we grow? How did we learn? How did we contribute, right? How did we love? And I just take a little inventory at the end of the day or throughout the day of how I expanded by honoring my values.
I love it. I love it. I wrote every piece of that down. Thank you.
So yeah, I share that with clients, especially, over the last couple of years where it's just been a lot of uncertainty. I offer that tool to them and just say, hey, you know what? Try this for 6 days and see how much more certainty you have in your life, right? And you can look back over the day and how you answered the image prompts and say, you know what? Day well lived, life well lived. I can look back over the week, hey, week well lived, life well lived, right? And it brings us, we all have this capacity, and then there's our performance. And to the degree that that gap exists is our unhappiness. By going through the image process, we get to pull up our performance into our full capacity. And when we're in that space, everything's really, really okay.
Let's have some fun. What are some bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
What always jumps out at me is, and it's maybe just because of my age and I've been there, done that, but is when people talk about the grind or working their what off. I like to think, I always have this image of if I'm busy grinding something, eventually it's just going to be a pile of dust, right? So I like to think of it more as sculpting, right? What do I want to sculpt away from this marble to reveal the masterpiece? I'm always looking at, how can I sculpt rather than grind? And like I say, when I hear grind or you got to work, and I have no aversion to work or hard work, right? I believe we all have to have a willingness for that. But we also have to be aware that sometimes we need to do our work and not hide behind the work of our business, right? I've been, like I said, I was married for 30 years, but, that we had a hiccup at one point because I was busy working in my business and not doing the work on myself or the work with my wife on our relationship. And my business kind of became, quote, the other woman, right? It got in the way. And my wife wasn't feeling loved and everything she needed to feel in the relationship. And we started to drift apart. She finally got my attention and I said, okay, I got to wake up to this. Started doing my work and got rid of that story of the gremlin, the ego that was saying, you got to work harder, got to work harder, got to work harder. It's like, no, that's just you hiding out from doing the work in your life. And so when I see, people just think they got to work hard, it's like, okay, what are you really stepping around or stepping away from that really needs your time and energy in your life? And when I'm working with clients that are caught in the busy trap, it's usually a great indication of like, okay, there's something deeper here that we need to work on. Because hard work is really just sand in the gears.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a public service announcement. We're going to get right back into this show, but I wanted to ask you a question. If you have been listening to the show for any amount of time and you've picked up even one single tip, then I need your help. Get the word out. Tell people about resultsleader.fm. Share it on social media. Share it on your email. Share it anywhere. Hashtag resultsleaderfm. Now let's jump back into the interview. Machen, why do results matter?
Well, I think results, it's information, right? It's intelligence to let us know, can we celebrate or do we need to calibrate? Somewhere between diapers and getting our business cards printed, we forget how to celebrate. And so I'm a big proponent of celebrating the wins for myself, my family, my clients. But at the same time, we got to know what's working, but we got to know what needs work. And so that's the calibration piece. And so it's the information, right? There's lead indicators, there's lag indicators. We've got to know what the difference is, pay attention to them, and looking at what's working, double down on what's working, and what's not working, either calibrate it or eliminate it.
As an entrepreneur, and I have plenty of friends that do this too, and I'm curious why you think we do this. When we find something that's working, we quit doing it and start doing something else. You run into that?
I used to run into that personally a lot, and I work with a lot of people that do run into it. It's just knowing ourselves, and I call them addictions. It's probably not the right word, but some people are addicted to the struggle, right? It's like, okay, I got this figured out. It's easy, but I need that fix of figuring things out or solving the problem or the puzzle, because that's how they feel alive. And so they'll look for ways to abandon what's working and go into a new endeavor or a new path.
Dude, that line is so great. I'm writing it down, addicted to the struggle. That's money right there. So let's talk about you for a second. What area of your business would you like better results?
Where do I want better results? Well, good question. The good news, bad news is I have a full and thriving coaching and consulting business. And it's a lot of energy, a lot of output. So what I'm actually in the process of doing is, as a matter of fact, I was talking to one of my mentors earlier this morning, is creating more online courses, kind of a do it yourself or do it with you kind of a program, and working more with groups of people, mastermind kinds of situations, rather than just me doing the one-on-one coaching and consulting that I'm doing.
What results are you most proud of?
For me, it's that I get better and better every day. And I feel that, right? I know I'm finding ways every day to love and accept myself deeper and deeper and really feel that. And then also that I get to show other people how to experience that, and that's part of that image process, right? Is, most of the time, especially with the last couple of years, people are feeling like they're sprinting a marathon and they have no idea what mile they're on, right? Hence the bibs back there. But I had to come up with a way of like, which mile are we on and how can we celebrate that we just ran the last mile and feel good and renew the energy? And so for me, it's that piece, just knowing for me and in quite my tribe, I've been able to crack the code of making measurable progress, if you will, day in and day out, and not playing the comparing game with other people, right? Just playing the comparing game with my best self of yesterday, because that's all that matters for me.
How did you figure that out, man? Because I just had a discussion today about that exact topic where somebody was asking me about competitors. And I'm like, the only competitor that I know is me, because I'm the only person that's been here the whole time. So how'd you figure that out?
Well, I think a lot of it is deep listening, because everybody has had their challenges, their traumas, and it's not fair to judge the level or the severity of things, right? We all process it differently given our capacity. And so when we look at somebody else that's accomplished this and we say, that's what I should be doing. Well, the first thing that happens when we hear the word should is we have to recognize that's usually somebody else's voice that's got a hold of us, and we may not know what it is. And if we can get away from shoulding on ourselves, right? That's the line, and look at, what do I want here, right? It's like, maybe I do want that. And if so, how am I going to go about that? But I'm going to do it my way based upon where I'm at, because I'm starting here. I didn't start with where that other person started, when they came out of the womb. And they processed information way differently, came up with different meaning of themselves and the situation and the world around them to navigate differently. So we can't live from that place. We can only live from this place.
All right. Any parting thoughts you want to share with the results leaders who are listening to us right now?
Yeah, I'll say it this way. Obviously, I don't know you out there, the listeners, but I do know that you and everybody has everything they need in this very moment to choose the healthiest perspective from which to operate, to grow and become the best version of yourself. because things don't happen to us. Maybe they don't even happen for us, but they happen through us. So if we're paying attention, the world and life leaves clues. So just look for the clues. You've got everything you need. You are enough, just as you are.
It's lovely, man. Where can our listeners get more from you?
Well, obviously my website, probrilliance.com. And then I also formed a little link to, if you go to findmachen.com, findmachen.com. I put a couple links into that little site, just some cool information and resources. Doesn't cost anything. They're totally self-sufficient. They stand on their own. They're not an upsell or a sales pitch or anything like that. It's just pure goodness for us to connect in and get to experience each other.
I thought you were going to tell me Find Machen was like to your tracking chip or something. Okay. Gotcha. Man, that was so much fun. Thank you for spending some time with us. And thank you, results leaders, for tuning in. We'll have links to everything in the show notes. Another show is in the can. That is a wrap for another edition of ResultsLeader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to ResultsLeader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard. We'll catch you on the next one.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.